Today we are going to see one of the most important topic, especially for framework and automation, that is data-driven testing. Data-driven testing. So first, let us understand what is data-driven testing. So sometimes you may have some test cases and which needs some set of data, like you need to provide some test data, and you want to execute. You have to execute the same test case multiple times with different sets of data. So which is basically called as a data-driven testing. And the data can be specified, or we can prepare the data in different files. So sometimes we can use Excel, or sometimes we can use our database. Suppose the data is already available on the database, or we can also read the data from the database and we can use the data for your testing purpose. But if you prepare your own data or test data, most of the times we will prefer to use Excel sheets, because Excel sheet is having more comfortable. So all the data properly we can arrange like in the form of rows and columns. So it is more flexible at the time of reading and writing data into the Excels. So most of the times we prefer to use Excel sheets or Excel files to prepare the test data, and we use the same data in our test case. Okay. So that this is basically called the data driven testing. So the testing is driven by the data. Now today we are going to see how we can perform data driven testing using Excel file as a data source. Okay. So that's another most important thing. So by default, Selenium doesn't support any Excel sheet. Okay. So we cannot directly work with Excel sheet by using Selenium WebDriver. And Selenium WebDriver is only meant for web automation. It will just try to interact with the elements on the web page. That's it. Okay. Apart from that, it will not provide anything. So, but we need to do a lot of other things in our project or in our framework. So one of the main concept is working with the Excel sheets. Okay. But how we can work with Excel sheet if I don't have support in Selenium WebDriver? So again, we need to use a third-party module, so which is available in Python itself, that is OpenPyXL module. Okay, so by using OpenPyXL module, and we have to basically import this. Okay, so again, if you import this module, by default, it will not come with Python. We have to install one module. Okay, so we have to install it just like a WebDriver module we have installed inside the PyCharm, right? So similarly, OpenPyXL also we need to install this module, and then we will get a certain number of methods and functions and so on. So by using them, we can interact with the Excel sheet. Okay, so what is the use of this module? So we can work with Excel sheets or Excel files. Okay, and it is only for .xls extensions. So if you have an Excel file which is having this extension, then it will support. But other than this, if you have any other extension, so which will not support, only for Excel files which are having XLSX. By default, Microsoft documents are having the same extension. Okay, and you can just try this. So OpenPyXL. So that's a module which we have to install on top of Python, and then we will get certain number of functions and methods by which we will able to interact with the Excel sheet. Okay, so first we will see how to set up this OpenPyXL in PyCharm. So what you need to do is go to PyCharm, and here go to File, and here you can just go to Settings, and inside the settings you can see your project, right? So inside the project you can see Project Interpreter. So what are all modules which is already installed on top of Python? So you can see here. So previously we have installed all these modules, and you can also see the Selenium WebDriver module in this. So you can just look at the Selenium is also part of it, and rest of them are supported modules which are required. So now we need to install this particular module, that is OpenPyXL. So how to install this module is very simple. You can just open this project interpreter, and I'll show you navigation once again. Just go to the file and settings. Here go to settings. Now here your project name will appear, and then you can select the project interpreter. And here you can see one button called install. So you can just click on this plus button, and you can just search for it. So just copy paste this one. So this is OpenPyXL. And once you open it, now it will show you in that list like this. So I already installed this OpenPyXL. So that's the reason it is giving in blue color. And it is saying a Python library to read and write Excel 2010, XLSX and XLSM also supported. XLSS, XLSM also supported. Okay, so this is a module which we have to install. So I already installed it, so it is giving a blue color. And if you're not installed, just select it and click on install package. Okay, and once you have installation is done in this window, so then in this list you can see that one, and not this one. So I can just say open PyXL. OpenSSL, yeah, here it is. So open PyXL, you can see here. Okay, this is the latest version by default which will install. So once you have this install open PyXL, now we are ready to work with the Excel sheet. Okay, so after that you can just okay and close this window. Now come back to your project. So this simple setup you can do. So you can just search for it and install it. This is a prerequisite. And once you install this particular module, then only we can work with the Excel sheets. Okay. Now, once we have installed it, as a first step, we will see how to read the data from Excel. Okay. So we'll see how to read data from Excel. And then I'll show you how to write data into the Excel. So through automation code, we will do everything. Okay. How to read data from Excel, how to write data into the Excel. And once you know this, how to read and write data into the Excel, then we will see what data-driven test case. So data-driven test case, how to automate data-driven test case. Okay, so before that, we need to know how to read and how to write. So we need to know some certain number of methods which are already available. And it's not that much complex. It's very simple and very easy. And once you understand this reading and writing, so I will make more simpler. This data-driven test I'll make more simple and to understand. So let's start with the read data from Excel. First one, okay. So for that, what we need to do is we need to have one Excel sheet which contains some data before itself. So if I just go to my folder and I have maintained a few Excel sheets, you can just go back here. Okay, so I have some Excel file here called data.xls. So when I open this XLS, which contains some data here, I have some book names and the purchase date, amount, and the location is there. Okay, just I want to read this data through my automation code. Okay, so this is my Excel. So now let me just write our automation code. Go back to PyChamp, create a new directory. I'll name it as day 24. Inside this, I'm just creating a new Python file. Reading, I'll name it as a reading Excel. All right. So now, as soon as we created this Excel, in this example, we are not going to do anything how to read and how to write data into the Excel. So once you understand this, then we will go to the data-driven test. So there again, we will work with the web application. So first, let us focus mainly on the Excel sheet. So first, we need to know how to interact with the Excel sheet or Excel files. Okay. So as a first step, what we need to do is we need to import open by Excel module, which we have already installed, right? So that we need to import open by Excel, which will automatically pop up here. Just we need to import. So once import this module, so we will able to access all the methods and functions from this open Excel. That's the first step. Now the second step is we need to get the Excel file where exactly it is located. Okay. So I'll just create one variable called path, and here I will store the location of my Excel. Let me go to the location, and in the C drive under Selenium practice. Okay, so here it is there. Okay, so here data.xls. This is my file. So let me just give the path first. Okay, slash, and my file name is data.xls. So make sure you don't have any spaces or anything in the file. So this is a path. So the path is representing the Excel file where exactly it is. Now in this Excel file, there are many sheets are there. You can just look at here, sheet 1, sheet 2, 3, 4, multiple sheets are there, right? So I want to extract the data from the sheet 1. So this sheet 1 data I want to extract. So for that, what we will do is we have to capture the sheet. How to capture the sheet? So before capturing the sheet, we need to load the workbook. So normally the Excel file contains the multiple components. Like Excel file is the first thing. In the Excel file, we have a workbook. Inside the workbook, we have a sheet or multiple sheets. So each sheet contains the rows and each row contains the columns, or we can call as a cells. So this is a structure of Excel file, right? If I take any Excel file, File contains a workbook contains the sheets, and every sheet contains a multiple rows. Again, every row contains a multiple cells, right? So we need to navigate exactly in the similar way. So let me just copy this and let us try here. So same navigation we got. So first we need to get the Excel file. So I have stored my Excel file into a variable called path. So path is representing my Excel file. And then what is the next one? So workbook. So we need to extract the workbook from this path or from this Excel. Okay. So how we can get it? We can simply say there is a method from the open Excel dot. What is that method? Load underscore workbook. And here we have to specify the file or path of the Excel sheet. Okay. So instead of calling path, I'll just name it as a file. Okay. It is better to have file. Right. So now this is my Excel file and I'm passing the file here. So what this method will do is this method or function will extract the it will load the workbook from the file. And once you load the workbook from the file, we have to store it in one more variable. I'm just creating one more variable called workbook. Okay. Now we got the file from this location and then we got the workbook from the file. So this one is also done. And once you get the workbook, from that workbook, we have to extract the sheet. We can have multiple sheets, but we need to extract specific sheet from this workbook. So for that, what we will do is take this variable workbook of, in the bracket, specify the sheet name. So what is the sheet name here? I have multiple sheets. So sheet 1 is the name of the sheet. I say sheet 1. That's it. So this will return the sheet. So I'm storing that sheet in a variable. Now with these 3 steps, we have done these 3 levels. So the file I captured, from the file workbook I captured, from the workbook sheet is also captured. So from the sheet, we have to get all the rows and cells. So if you have multiple data like this, number of rows, columns are there. So we need to read this data. So if you have more number of rows and columns, we have to write a loop statement in which through the loop statement only, we will able to read all the data. Again, there are 2 loop statements are required. One is for incrementing the rows. The other for loop is for incrementing the columns. The nested loop is required. But before writing the loops, we need to first of all find out total number of rows and total number of columns. So accordingly, we can decide how many times we can repeat the loop. So how to find the number of rows and columns in this particular sheet? So we already captured the file, we already captured the workbook, and also we have captured the sheet. So once you get the sheet, the next thing is we need to find out the rows and columns which are present in the sheet. So how we can find the rows and columns? Simple. Sheet dot, there is a simple keyword is available, max underscore row, max underscore row, sheet dot max underscore row. And this will return the number of rows in Excel sheet. So total number of rows. So how it will count, how much data we have till here, it will count. Let's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like this. And these are will not count. Okay, these are empty. So how much data we have, only those cells will be, or those rows will be counted. So this particular command max underscore row. So this will count a number of rows in an Excel sheet. So this particular statement will count number of rows in Excel sheet, and we will store that value in a variable called rows. And now we have to know the columns also, right? So how many columns are there in Excel sheet? So what we can do is we get the sheet from the same sheet, use max underscore column. So this will give you number of columns which are available in the Excel sheet. And it is very simple and very easy here when you compare with the Java. Okay, but in Java we have to write complex things. So many methods are there, but it's very simple. And if you just practice step by step, you can easily understand. So now we counted so many number of rows and number of columns in a sheet. So now we have entered into the sheet. Now what is the next thing? We have to write 2 looping statements. One is for incrementing the row, and every row there are multiple cells are there. So we need to, for each row, we have to read all the columns. So accordingly, we have to write a loop statement. So I want to read all the rows columns from the Excel sheet. So for that, I'm writing one for loop for, let me take one variable called R, which is representing the row number. R, I'm using range function because we need to specify the starting point and ending point. Depends on the number of rows, right? So range of starting from the first row And how many rows we have totally? So we already counted here. So let me just specify. But when you specify the rows, the last row will not be captured. It will always take -1 in the range function, right? So that's a, if I just look at when I say here, total number of rows are 6, for example. So total now how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are there. But it will not count the sixth one. It will just count till 5 because we use range function here. Earlier we have discussed, right, how range function works. So that's the reason what we will do. We will add +1 also. Okay, this is a outer for loop which is representing the rows. Now once you enter into the for loop, then we need to read all the columns from each row. So inside the for loop, I'll write one more for loop, and I'll say column number I will represent with the C in again range. Even column number also start from 1. So I say 1 comma, and range function will not count the last column number. So columns +1, because we already captured the number of columns here, +1. And now here we need to write a statement which will extract the data from the particular row and particular cell. So particular row and particular column. So here we will write one statement, print how to capture the data. So we know the row number, and here we know the column number. R representing the row, C representing the column. But how we can extract the data from that particular row and column? So for that, use sheet object dot, which we already captured the sheet, right? So take the sheet dot cell, sheet dot cell of, and this is a function, sheet dot cell of which cell you want to get. Here we have to pass the row number and column number, R comma C. Okay, from that particular cell dot value. That's it. So this will get the value which is available in this particular cell, and again the cell is present inside the sheet. Okay, so that's it. So simple loop statement we have to write. So first time R value becomes 1, and now here C value also becomes 1, and then inner for loop will repeat 3 to 4 times, depends on the number of columns. 4 columns are there, so 4 times inner loop will repeat. And after doing that, after completion of inner loop, 1 round of execution, the first row values will be printed, and after that we need to go up and again get the another row, and again from the second row again we will get all the columns. Inner for loop will repeat 4 times. So again it will go up, and row value will be incremented by 3. Now the row is representing the 3, and again it will read all the columns in the row number 3. So like this, which will repeat multiple times based on the number of rows and columns. And now this will print the data in our console window. So before executing this, and try to close this Excel file, otherwise you will get into error. Okay, so while executing the code, it will read the data from Excel. At the time, Excel should not be open. Okay, so you can just close it. Let's execute and see the output. Executed. So now you can just look at here. It combines everything, all the rows, all the columns, everything it is combined, right? So even it is not given any spaces, everything is printed in the new lines. But I want to exactly design this format. So how we can do this is, you can just after completion of inner for loop, come out from the inner for loop, and here just write one more print statement, so that it will jump to the next level or next line and print another row. So each row will be printed in the different lines, instead of printing everything into one single column value. Or you can just look at this data, right? So if I just look at this data, every cell value is printed line by line. So all the values are combined, and all the cell values are printed in multiple lines. So if I just use print command here, and this is empty print, it will just jump to the next level. When I execute this, and you can see some format here. Now you can just look at here. This is actually first row, right? So this is a second row, and then this is a third row, fourth row, and so on. But again, this is not in the tabular format. So I want to write these things in the side by side, like book name, purchase date, amount, location, and then Selenium, date, 350 Africa, like this. So what you can do is, as soon as you printed this cell, and here use one function, comma, end function, end equal to, and just say how much space you want. You can just give one tab space like this. Okay. So what this function will do, end equal to, what this keyword will do is, as soon as the cell value printed, okay, and then it will append some space after printing the cell value. Okay. Now let us execute. Now we can just look at this. So it is exactly printed in the tabular format. So this is the header part, and first row, second, third, fourth, and fifth one. So last one is the C#, so which is printed here, including headers. We got the data from the Excel sheet. Okay. So this is how we can just simple write a loop statement through which we will able to read all the rows and columns from an Excel sheet. So you can have any number of rows or any number of columns. And just get the number of rows and number of columns from Excel sheet and provide it here, and then it will read all the data. And it is very simple steps. But if you want to write the same thing in Java program, at least you have to write 30 to 30 plus lines of code. So here we have just completed within 18 lines, right? Almost, not more than that. But in Java, so we have to do a lot of things. But here in Python, OpenPy module is OpenPy Excel is very simple and very easy module, right? So if I just remember this structure, we followed the same sequence. So first we got the file and get the workbook, then get the sheet. And after that, we have counted number of rows and columns. And after that, we have written a loop statement, which will read the data from all the rows and all the columns. Simple process. Okay. Now this is a reading data from Excel. Now we'll see how to write data into Excel. Suppose my Excel sheet doesn't have any data, but I want to write data into the Excel. So then how we can do that? Let me go and create another example. So writing data into Excel. Writing data into Excel. So to write the data into Excel, what I will do is I will have first Excel file. Let me close this Excel. And let me just take some empty file. Let me just take, okay, I have something called testdata.xls. So currently I have some data here. I'm just removing it. Okay, I'm just deleted all the data now. Save it. And currently this is empty and the sheet name is data here. Sheet name is data. Remember this. So now I want to add some data into the testdata.xls is my sheet. So as a first step, what we need to do? Step one, we have to import the OpenPyXL module. So import OpenPyXL module. And what is the next thing? And the same process we have to follow. Same process. We need to capture the Excel file where exactly it is. So that location is most important. So that location is this one. So this is actually Excel file path. This is a file. So this is a location. So Selenium practice, and inside the test data .xls file is available. Or you can just, if you are getting some blue mark like this, you can just say double slashes. Okay. So now you got the file into a variable called file. Now from this file, we need to extract the workbook. We have to load the workbook. How to load the workbook? From the OpenPyXL, we have a method called load workbook, load_workbook, and specify the file here. File. Okay. So then from this file, it will load the workbook, and we can store that workbook in a variable called workbook. So now I have stored the entire workbook into a variable called workbook. And from this workbook, right? So in which sheet you want to write the data. So you can just specify that, right? So in the previous example, and this is how we have extracted. And there is one more way also there, I'll tell you. So here, when I say like this, what happens? From this workbook, it will get the sheet one into sheet. But here in our Excel file, we have a name to the sheet called data is there, right? So I can also say directly data here. Data also. This is also perfectly fine. Okay, but when we need to go with this, suppose if you have more number of sheets in your Excel and all sheets having some data, right? And then you can specify the sheet name here. Accordingly, it will go and read the data from that particular sheet, right? But suppose you have only one sheet in your Excel sheet like this. I don't have any more sheets here. I have only one sheet here, right? So these are only active sheet currently I have in my workbook. So I don't have any more sheets. In that case, what you can do is, instead of writing this workbook of sheet name, you can simply say workbook.active. Workbook.active. So what this will do, this will get active sheet from Excel. Active sheet means only single sheet available. So if you have multiple sheet in Excel, we don't say active sheet. Okay. So if you have only one sheet in our Excel file, so that we will call it as an active sheet. So we can also use this keyword, which will also return the sheet. So instead of providing this one, so instead of providing this workbook of sheet 1, you can simply get the sheet. By seeing the statement, don't confuse. These are the two different ways we can do that. And if you have a multiple sheets, then write this statement, workbook of sheet 1. And here you can specify the name of the sheet called data. Or if you have only one single sheet, then directly say active. So this will get the active sheet and store into this variable. Okay. So I can also write like this, so the C people will not confuse. Or we can write like this. This is also correct. So what this will do, which will basically get the active sheet from Excel. Now, so we got the sheet. So now we need to write data into the sheet. So for that, we need to decide how many rows and columns data we want to write, because here we cannot count rows and columns, right? Because we don't have any data in this. It's a completely empty file. I don't have any data into this. So if we have some data, then we will able to find the rows and columns. First of all, we don't have any data in this. So we have to write our own data. So let us decide how many rows and how many columns of data you want to write. So accordingly, we have to directly write one for loop. So for, okay, I are in range from one row to how many rows you want to write? I want to write 6 rows of data. So let's say 6 here. Okay, 6 means what? It will write 5 rows because 6 will not be considered. And now I want to write how many columns in each row? I want to write 3 columns in each row. So if you want to write 5 rows in Excel, specify the 6, because the 6 will not consider, only 1 to 5 will be considered. But I want to write how many columns? I want to write 3 columns in each row. So I say C in range 1, 4 I have to give. Why 4? Because 4 will not be considered in range function. It will take n-1. So 1, 2, 3 will be considered. So 3 columns will be created. So now we know the row number and column number. Now we need to create the row and column number. We need to create that cell in the Excel sheet, and then we will assign the value into it. So same command, sheet.cell, and here we specify the row number and column number, and dot value equal to what is the value you want to enter, we can specify that. So to read the data and to write the data into the cell, for both the purposes we use the same command. See this, if we want to read the data from the cell, we use this one. So we don't specify anything, just we will specify the data like this. So this will read the data, or this will read the value from this particular cell. Suppose if you want to set the value into the cell, then here same command equal to, and here you have to pass the value which we want to set. So this is for reading and this is for writing data into the cell. Same command, sheet.cell row comma column dot value. And here the value will be stored in this data variable after getting the data from a cell. But here we are writing this data into the cell. That's the only difference. Okay. Now, so here we set some value into the cell. Okay. We set some value into the cell. And after completion of the loop, what happens is all the data, same data element or same data will be written in all the rows and all the columns. So later I'll show you how to write multiples data, different type of data. But let us first see same data. So based on this loop, by using this loop statement, I cannot write different type of data. Okay. So because every time when a loop is changing, I cannot change this value multiple times. Every time I cannot change that value. So when I use this loop to write data into the Excel, we can just have only one single value. We can add the same value in all the rows and all the columns. That means all 5 rows and 4 columns, everywhere we can see the same value. But after completion of this loop, after completion of the loop, we need to do one more thing. What is that? And this sheet we have extracted from the workbook. So we haven't used this file. So you can just look at here. We have passed this file here. And then we capture the workbook, we capture the sheet, and we have written the data into the sheet in the form of rows and columns. But after that, we have to save it, right? If after writing some data in the Excel, if I don't save it, what will happen? So data will be gone, right? But here also we do the same thing. After writing the data into the sheet, once you exited from the for loop, here we need to use one method called workbook.save, and which file we need to save? File. Mandatorily required. If I don't give this command, data will be there, but it will not save. Again, you will see the empty Excel sheet. So this particular command will save the data, whatever you have added into the sheet. Okay, that's it. So these are the only steps we have to write the data into the Excel. But when I execute this, which will write the same value in all the 5 rows and 4 columns. Okay, now let me just open the Excel. So currently I don't have any data in this. Let me close it. And then I'm executing this code. Okay, executed. So now go back and open the same Excel sheet, testdata.xls. So now we can just look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows are created and 3 columns are created. If I just look at here, I'm just maximizing it. Okay, so now 5 rows are created, 3 columns are created, but we have added only same data in every row and every column. And in the same sheet, it is added. But suppose I want to write a different data in each and every column. I want to write a different data. Let's say I want to write some employee ID or employee name, something like this. Like I will create multiple rows and 2 columns. And then how we can do that? So in that case, we cannot use loop statement, because when I use this write statement inside the loop, which will add same value every time, right? So what we need to do is we will do in different way. Let me just show you. So this is for same data. So if you want to write a same data in all the rows and columns, then we go with this. Now what I will do is comment this code. Now multiples data. So how to write multiple data, right? Now I'll create, I have one more sheet here, test data 1, and which is also have some data. So I want to store this data like this, employee IDs and employee names. So currently I'm just deleting this data. I don't have anything. Save the file. So this is also empty sheet. Sheet name is data and the file name is test data 1. So let me just change it here. So first we'll get the file and test data 1 file and get the workbook, because we have only one active sheet. So get the sheet, but don't write the looping statement here. Don't write the looping statement. Instead, what we can do is we have to write multiple statements like this. So sheet.cell. Let's start with the first row. So first row, first column, dot value is, let's say 1, 2, 3. I'm giving some value here. Or if it's a number, you don't need to give the double quotations. Now what I will do is in the same first row, and the second column. And here I want to store the name of the employee. I'll say Smith. Now first row, first column, and first row, second column is done. Now repeat the same thing. Second row, first column, second row, second column. So here I'll say some different number, and here I'll say John. Now second row, first column, second row, second column is done. Now repeat once again. Now third row, first column, third row, second column. And here I can simply say some other name called David. So like this we can add. Or if you want to add one more column also, you can still add. So let me add one more column in the first row. So I'll say 3. And his job I will add. So let's say he's engineer. Okay, now same thing we will repeat here also. In the second row, third column. And here I'll say manager. And here, third row, third column. So third row, third column. And here I'll say developer. Okay, so now I can just write multiple rows and multiple columns like this. So after that, we have to save the workbook. Everything is in. Instead of just writing for loop, I'm just writing all the rows and columns data. So which will create how many rows? 3 different rows and 3 different columns. Now let's execute. So currently this file doesn't have any data. So this completely empty sheet I have. Now let's execute. Okay, now it is executed. Now go back and open the sheet. Now we can see the data. So the first 3 rows are created, and every row we have 3 columns are created. So if you want to write a different sets of data, so we can just write the statements like this. Different sets of data. If you want to write, you can just write like this, because the data is a different, right? So we cannot put in the loop statement if the data is a different. And don't forget to save the file. So workbook.save off, we have to specify the file, because after editing the Excel sheet or after entering the data, we have to save it. Otherwise, the data will not be there in your Excel sheet. Your program will not give any error, it will execute. But once you open the Excel file, you cannot see the data in the Excel sheet if I don't use this command. But it is mandatorily required. So it will save the file after entering the data. Okay, so this is how we need to write the data into the Excel. It's very, very simple. Again, in Java, it is very complex things. We need to write a lot of things in Java, but in Python, it is very, very simple to do that. Right. So with this, we have understood how to read the data from Excel and how to write data into the Excel. Some basic operations. And we can do a lot of things. We can open Excel, right? Open PyExcel is a huge module. So we can do a lot of things in Excel, but for data-driven testing, how much is required? So we have to just learn that much. That's more than enough. Okay. So just reading and writing, even if you don't know how to read and write the data into Excel, no problem at all. So still we will be able to do the data-driven testing, even though if you don't know how to read and write the data into Excel. I'll tell you how. So now let us move on to the actual data-driven testing. So reading data Excel, we have seen. How to write data into the Excel, we have seen. So based on this understanding, now we need to just create a data-driven test case. But if we want to create a data-driven test case, so do we really want to know, or do we need to know exactly how to read the data and how to write data into the Excel? In real time, in the real projects, exactly you don't need that. Okay, because so we will use something called utility file. Okay, we will use something called utility file, which contains all the reusable functions. So to get the number of rows, get the number of columns, read the data, write the data, apply colors, and all these things, there are multiple functions will be there in the utility file. And we will make use of that utility file to simplify your data-driven test case. So we don't write all this code in your data-driven test case. We don't write all this code in your data-driven test case. So the data-driven test case contains only web element actions and validation points. That's it. But how we can achieve the data-driven testing without knowing this concept? I'll tell you where exactly it is required. So let me just explain something here. So how exactly the data-driven testing will be done in your real-time project? Right. So let us see this particular scenario. Suppose you have, let us say, have 10 different data-driven test cases. Okay. So I have 10 different data-driven test cases in my project. Assume that I have 10 different data-driven test cases in my project. So normally when you write your test case, so what you will do in the test case, what you will write? So you will write many things. The first thing is you will write web elements interaction, or you need to interact with the web, right? Okay, let me just, okay. So you need to interact with the, or we can say automation code. Okay, so you will have automation code which will interact with the browser elements and everything. And apart from that, right, Excel related operations. So what are the Excel related operations? Reading and writing. Okay, reading, writing data, and counting number of rows and counting number of columns. And sometimes we fill the color in the Excel sheet also. Okay, like fill green color or fill green red color if any test case got failed. So these are the normal operations we do in the as part of Excel operations. So this will be the same for every test case, right? So if I just copy this, right? So this will be the same for every test case. So this will continue like this. Every test case will have some automation code. Every test case, we need to do all Excel operations. If you want to read the data from Excel, or if you want to write the results back into the same Excel, we do all these operations for every test case. So when you do this approach, your complexity of the test case will be increased. So why it will increase the complexity? Because in your test case, you are including the automation code anyway. So that itself is a complex. But apart from the automation code, again, if you include the code of the Excel operations in the same test case, and your test case will become complex. That's one problem. And the second problem is duplication. So whatever Excel operations you are doing in test case, the same operations you do in every test case, right? So same reading, writing, counting the rows, counting the columns,
The same operations you do in every test case, every data-driven test case is required the same operations. And the same code again you have to write in every test case. So repetition is there, duplication is there. So these are the two major problems in this approach. If I include automation code along with the Excel related operations in the same automation code or same test case. Okay, let us say this is one test case, and let's say test case 1, and let's say this is my test case 2. So in every test case, we will do this. So there are two problems I shown. So one is, one problem is the complexity of the test case, because automation code and Excel related operations we write in the same test case. So it is complex. Second problem is the same operations we do in every test case. That is again duplication. And if you have more number of test cases, again complexity will be increased automatically, and the number of lines of code also will be increased. So to avoid this problem, so what you will do is in the real-time environment, we do one thing. So here we just go to the real-time environment. So we will have a utility file, something called as a utility file. So which is called as a, you can give any name to this. Okay, normal I will give Excel utils. Sorry, Excel utils. Okay, so this is a simple a module. We can simply say one module I will create. So what this Excel utils module contains, so whatever Excel operations we do for reading, writing, rows count, column count, or applying green and red colors in the sense, for each operation we will have a different functions are available. For every operations we will have a separate functions are available. So these, for each operation we will create different functions in Excel utils. So now these are the methods, or these are the functions actually. Okay, so these are the functions now. Everything is a function. So writing data and like counting the rows in Excel sheet and counting the number of columns in Excel sheet. So if it is a function, we will able to call this, right, from any file. We will able to invoke this function from any file, any test case in a model. So we will write all Excel related operations in one file, which is called utility file, which is basically a separate module file in which contains only functions. Like when I call this read method, which will read the data from Excel. When I call the writing method, which will write the data into the Excel. When I call the rows method, which will give the row count. When I call the column, it will get the number of columns. And when I call the green or red functions, which will apply color on the particular cell in the Excel sheet. So these are the reusable functions. Reusable functions. Why? Because these functions are required for every test case. So if you write this Excel util separate file, then what you will do in your test case, we no need to write the Excel operation. Just we will have only automation code in the test case. Just we will have only automation code. We no need to write any Excel related operations inside our test case. But apart from that, we will just add some validations. That's the only thing we will do. Whether the test case is passed or failed, that's it. So now what happens for every test case now contains only automation code, but not Excel related operations, every test case. But how this automation code work with Excel sheet? So we will invoke these functions from this test case like this. So now this particular utility file we will reuse in every automation test case, in every data driven test case. And in automation test case, in data driven test case, if you want to count the number of rows in a table, or if you want to read the data from Excel, immediately I will call this method from Excel utils. That will give you the data. And you don't need to write the code for reading the data from Excel. Similarly, if you want to write data into the Excel, just call this method and which will write the data into the Excel sheet. You don't need to write any code here to write data into the Excel. So in that way, we can avoid writing the code for these operations in every test case. So this is the actual approach we follow while performing the data-driven testing. So data-driven testing approach. Data-driven testing approach. So in every project, we follow this approach, data-driven testing approach. So we will have Excel utility file, which contains the reusable functions. And these functions we will try to invoke in every automation test. That means every data-driven automation test. So this is the actual approach we follow. So we understood the problems with this approach and what is the use of Excel utils. And this is another module we will create, and that module methods we will invoke from every data-driven test. So this is the actual approach we follow while automating the data-driven test case. Clear, everyone? So now I'll show you how we can implement this, how to write Excel utility file, and how we can use it in your every test case. Okay, so we'll see practically now. Now go back to the PyCharm. Now I'll show you how utility file looks like. Okay, so first we need to have this file, then we will create data-driven test cases. It's very simple. Now I'll show you how Excel utility file looks like. So I already have, let me just create here. Okay, I will name it as Excel utility. Okay, or you can say, you can give any name, guys, no issue. Excel utility, I'll say Excel utils. This is also fine. Excel utils. This is a simple Python file, it's a model. So what it contains reusable functions. I'll copy this code. I'll explain what exactly it is. See now, this is the Excel utility, and you can use the same file in our future projects also. Wherever you have you want to implement any framework, so you can reuse this Excel utility file in all your projects. Now you can just look at this. I have imported OpenPyExcel, and this is also required to import whenever you want to apply some colors on the cells, because sometimes we will write the results into same Excel sheet, and that particular cell, if the test is passed, then I'll update in the cell is passed with the green color. And if the test is failed, I will update the cell color as a red color. So if you want to apply some kind of colors and styles, we need this model, we need to import. Now look at this. What is this first method will do? What first function will do? When I call this getRowCount by passing two arguments, what are those arguments? File and sheet name. Excel sheet file path and sheet name. When you pass this argument to this function, this will return the number of rows. Return the sheet.max row, right? So which will open the workbook, it will open the sheet and automatically return the number of rows in a sheet. So this function will do for us. So we don't need to write this code in every test case. Simply you can call this function by passing two arguments that will give you row count. Simple. Now second one, get column count. Suppose if you want to count number of columns in Excel, just call this method by passing two arguments. Just say file name and sheet name. That's it. So this will return the number of columns are available in the Excel sheet. Now another method, read data. So if you want to read the data from Excel sheet, just pass a file name, sheet name, and which row and which column. Right? Because if you want to read the data, from where we can read the data? From the cell, right? In the cell contains the data. So when you pass a file, sheet name, row number, and column number, and finally it will return the value which is there in that particular cell. So internally what it will do, it will open the workbook, it will get the sheet, and from that sheet it will get the cell based on our row number and column number and get the value and return that. So when I call this function by passing these arguments, which will return the data which is available in the cell. Simple. Now write data. So if you want to write something in the Excel sheet, we just pass the file name, sheet name, row number, in which column, and what you want to write in that particular cell. We have to specify the data also. So we have to pass these parameters to this function, and which will load that workbook, get the sheet, get the cell, and the data will be added to the cell, and then workbook automatically close, saved. This is the function. Now fill green color. Suppose sometimes we can apply the color on the cell like green or red color. So in that case, call this function by passing this argument like which file, which sheet name, which row number, which column number you want to apply the color. And this particular code will apply the color and save the sheet. And this is the additional thing which we need to write. There is a class called pattern field. So here we have to pass the argument like this is a code, color code actually. Okay. And this is representing the green color and solid. So this setting pattern field. So the same pattern field will be filled on the cell here, and finally save the file. And same thing, same method, same function here also, but instead of a green color, this color code is representing the red, but exactly rest of the things are same. This is a Excel utils.py. So this is one module. So for every data driven test case, we will use this particular module. We will use this particular file, even in the framework, even in the project also. We always use this utility file to automate the data-driven test cases, because it will simplify our job and it will reduce the complexity in our automation. So instead of writing this code, all the code in every test case, you can just write these functions in a separate module and call these functions wherever it is required in your test case. Okay, so that is a concept. Now let me show you how to write a data-driven test case by using this utility file. Okay, now, so for that, I'm just taking one application here. Okay, so let's go to this application. So I have something called fixed deposit calculator. Okay, so in this, I have few number of fields. I have principal amount, rate of interest, period, and this is the drop down, and this is also frequency drop down, and the calculate is there. So what I want to test is how we need to test this. So if you have these kind of scenarios, you need to perform the data-driven test, because every time this is giving correct result or not, you need to calculate. And before that, you need to prepare some test data based on the formula, and you have to prepare some test data. Suppose I'm passing some data here. Let's say some value and rate of interest, and let us say period, let's say 5 years I'm taking for now, and simple interest, let's say calculate. So when I pass this combination of data, we are getting this is a maturity value. Like this, you have to enter multiple values and note down all the data in the Excel sheet. So that's your test data. Now I already prepare one sheet which contains all the test data. So we need to test this scenario with that particular data. And every time we are getting the correct value here or not, maturity value is correct or not, we need to check according to our expected maturity value. So let me show you the Excel file. So I have some data called, not this one. Yeah, this is the one. So this is our Excel sheet currently I have. Let me just put normal. Okay, so this is my Excel sheet which contains some data, like whatever fields we have in our applications. So relevant data we have to prepare. And if I just look at my application, so we need to have principal amount. So in the first column we have a principal amounts, and then rate of interest. In second column we have a rate of interest. Now here period is having two elements. One is a text field, the other one is a drop down. So two columns are required to store the period. So in the period, I have taken two columns here, and this is a number, and years and months and days also there in the drop down, right? So years, months and days, I have taken multiple combinations. And frequency, again, there are multiple options are there, but here I have tested only with a simple interest. So later on, you can add multiple frequencies and you can prepare the test data and you can check it. But for now, I'm just taking only simple interest calculation testing. And frequency is a simple interest. So I want to select the drop down. I want to select the simple interest from this drop down. And then maturity value. So this is the actual maturity value we are expecting. So we need to prepare this maturity value before testing the application. Okay, so this is our maturity value, which based on this value, this combination of data, if I pass, and this is a maturity value, it should return. Our application should return that. Similarly, when you pass this data, our application should return this maturity value. So like this, we have to prepare some data before itself. And apart from this maturity value, and I have created one more column called expected, what I'm expecting from this. So when I pass this combination, if I get 24,000, then my test is passed, expected. And when you pass this data, if I get maturity values at 70,000, it should pass. But what about the last one? When you pass this data, if you get this one, it should fail actually, because this is a negative input, negative test. So actually when you pass this combination, you will get some other value, not this one. Okay, so this is a negative test. If I pass some invalid input, if it is failing or not, we will verify. So we have different combination of data, and this is our own reference column. So we are not going to do anything with this expected. Okay, and we will pass this data to the application, and we are not passing maturity value actually. So maturity value will be given by the application here, but we will pass only this data till frequency, principal amount, rate of interest, period, frequency. We will pass into the fields, every field. Once you click on the calculate, whatever maturity value which is appeared here, we will capture this maturity value. We will compare this maturity value with our expected maturity value. Because in our automation, we will also read this column data, maturity value data. And later on, we will compare this maturity value with our actual maturity value. If both are equal, then in the last column result, I will update pass like this. And I'll apply green color also on that particular cell if it is passed. And if it is failed, I'll apply the fail red color, just like this. Okay. So the result column, we will update. So after completion of testing each and every combination, we will also update the result column. So this is the actual data driven test. So now we will see how we can perform the data driven test practically. Now go to your PyChamp, and now I said this utility file we have to use in our automation now. Okay. Now let's create a new Python file, and I'll name it as fixed deposit calculator, right? So fixed deposit calculator. Now let us do step by step. So first of all, we have to interact with the application, right? So we have to launch our application. We have to get these elements. A lot of things are there. But before that, we have to read the data from Excel sheet, and we have to read all the data from Excel sheet and keep everything in the variables, and then try to interact with the application and pass the data through variables. So let us start here. So as a first step, let me just specify the required stuff here. Okay. And then, so by class service select is also required because we need to handle the drop down. Okay. And implicit weight and everything is there. Now let us start launching your application. So driver.get and specify the application URL. Okay. And then maximize the page. So driver.maximize window. Right. So first let us see how to get the data from Excel. Once you get the data from Excel, then we will try to interact with the application. So to get the data from Excel sheet, we will use Excel utils. So this is a file which we are going to use. Let me just open this. Okay, I just open side by side, then you will be able to see that. Okay, so first of all, if you still want to call these functions, we need a file. Where is the file? What is the sheet name? So these details we have to know, right? So first of all, create a file variable here, file equal to, and where is our test data file is available in this location, caldata.xls / the name of the file is caldata.xls. Okay, so let me just put here, and this is the file. And what else we need? So once we get the file, then we will be able to call all the functions, right? So what we need to do first thing, so in the caldata.xls, we need to just get the row count first of all. How to read the data from this? To read the data from this Excel, what you will do? You have to know the rows and columns, right? But if you have minimum columns like this, we can still manage with one single for loop. So because just we will write one for loop which will repeat the rows, and in each and every row we will get all the data from multiple columns. And for again repeating the columns, we no need to write the one more looping statement if we have less number of columns. And most of the times we don't maintain more than 10 columns. Okay, it should not exceed more than 10 columns. You can still write more number of columns, but it is not always recommended. So don't increase more than 10 columns. So just we can manage with one single for loop. We can write one for loop. In that for loop, we will read all the columns data and store into the variables. Now let me show you. So here I'm writing one for loop. So let me just write one for loop. So before writing the for loop, guys, so we have to know how many number of rows there in Excel, right? So we have to know how many rows, because based on that value only we have to repeat multiple times. But how we will get the number of rows in Excel sheet? So in Excel utils, we have one function called get row counter. So when I call this function by passing this value, by passing this data. So this will give you row counter, right? So what I will do is I'll just how to invoke these functions from this module, how to call these functions from this module into another module. So here our fixed deposit calculator is another module, and Excel utils.py is another module. How to call these functions from one module to another module. So we have discussed this concept in the modules, Python modules. Exactly. So we have to import that particular module. So we have to import this module. So Excel utils.py module, we have to import it. Okay. So how to import this? We can just simply say from, we have to say the directory name, first of all, from day 24, import Excel utils. Like this, we have to import, because this is created inside some other directory. So from day 24, import, and day 24 is a directory. From that, we have imported Excel utils. So now by using this Excel utils, we can directly invoke these functions, right? Now I want to get the row count. So simply you can say Excel utils dot, simple you can call get row count dot get row count. So you can see here all the functions will automatically pop up here, dot get row count. So this will give you number of rows which are available in your Excel sheet. Simple, one statement is done. Now what is the next step? So once we get the rows, we have to write a loop statement by which we will able to read the data. So now let me write one for loop. So for r, I'm taking one variable r in range function, from where we need to start reading the data. So we don't need header part, right? So we are not going to pass this in our application. So we don't need header. So from where we have to start, in which row we have to start? From the second row, we have to start reading the data. So the starting point should be 2 here. Okay, because we can avoid the header part. And how many times we have to repeat depends on the number of rows. We already counted. But let us say if the number of rows are 5, and when I say 5 here, 5th row will not be captured because range function will take always n-1. So we have to add +1. Now this will get all the rows from Excel. So now this R is representing the row number in a sheet. R is representing the row number. Now let us see how we can read the data from Excel sheet. So get column count is not required. Okay, if you have more number of columns, then we will call this method. For now, in this example, this is not required. In future, if it is required, you can call this function if you still want to get the column. But here we can still manage with one single for loop without calling get column counts. I'll show you how. So directly we'll try to read the data from Excel. So read data function I'm calling. So Excel utils dot read data. So when I call read data, what are the parameters we need to pass? File, sheet name, row number, column number. 4 parameters we have to pass. Like what is a file here? We already captured the file. So that I'm passing, comma. What is the second parameter? Sheet name. So inside the Excel sheet, what is the sheet name we have? Sheet 1. That we need to specify in the double quotations. Sheet 1 is a string type of data. Sheet 1. Now what's the next parameter? Row number and column number. So row number, R is representing the row number. So that you can directly specify here. But whatever the column number, from where we'll get the column number? The first input is a first column, principal amount, first column. So I'll say 1 hard coded this. Now what this will return? This statement will go and return the second row and first column data. So 20,000 will be written. What is that actually? Principal amount. So I'm storing this in a variable called prints. I'm just creating one variable like this. Okay. Now in the first row, we have to capture all the data like this and then pass the data to the application. Once it is completed, then go to the next row and again capture all the data from the same particular row. And after completion of that, again go to the next row and read all the data from the same row. So like this, we have to repeat. So now I capture the principal. And what is the next one? Rate of interest. So that we need to capture. Again, use the same function. So this time rate of interest. So I'm giving a different name, rate of interest. Same Excel utils dot read data, file, sheet, same row number, But what is the column number of this? Column number of rate of interest is 2. So that we need to pass. So column number is 2. Now this will get you rate of interest. Now the next one. So once you get the rate of interest, next one is a period. In the period, again, 2 columns are there. And what's this column number? 3. What this column number? 4. So 3 and 4 we need to capture. So for that, I can give period 1 and period 2. So period 1 is representing the first column number, and the period 2 which is representing the values in the second column. So if I just go back here, now I'm just passing the file. First parameter is a file, sheet name, row number, same row, and third column. So this time we capture the third column of data. So store in the period 1. Now I want to capture the fourth column data. So same statement, same sheet, same row number, fourth column. So period 2 also we captured. And what else we have? Frequency also we need to capture. So what is the column number of this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth column. So again, specify this. So this is a frequency. So I'll say FRE. And which column number? 5 column number. So we got the frequency value from the same row. And again, capture the expected maturity value, because we need to compare this with the actual maturity value at the end of the code. So now we need to capture the maturity value here. So what is the column number of this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth column. So go back and write the sixth column here. Sixth column. So what is this value? Maturity value, expected maturity value. We are expecting that. So expected underscore maturity value. So with this, what we have done? So we have captured all the data from the first row. First row in the sense second row. First row we have avoid here. So from the second row, we capture all the cells data. Now all these data is available inside these variables, right? All the data is available inside this variable. And what is the next step? We have to pass this data to the application. We already launched our application in the beginning here. So application is ready there. So once you get the data from the first row, just we need to pass this data to the application. So that is the next, and that should be part of the loop itself. Okay, we should not avoid the loop. We should not come out of the for loop. So everything should be part of the loop statement only. So in the loop, what we have done so far, we capture the data from the Excel sheet from the first row, and we have to pass the same data to the application. So that's the next level. So passing data to the application. How to pass the data? Now we need to identify these elements. So let's identify the first element, second, third element, and so on. So first element is an input. So go to selector hub and get it. Go back and identify the element. Driver dot find element by dot xpath. Specify the text path. Okay, specify the text path. And inside this element, what we need to pass? First element, principal value we need to pass. So dot send keys of, I'm just closing this Excel util for now. Send keys, which value we need to pass? The principal value we need to pass. Okay. So now whatever value we capture from Excel sheet, same value I'm passing into the element. Same thing we have to repeat for rest of the values. Now what is the next element? Rate of interest. So inspect this element. This is the XPath of rate of interest. Let's find out that element. Driver dot find element by dot XPath. Specify the XPath. The dot send keys, and which value we have to pass in the second box? Rate of interest. So we already capture from Excel that we need to pass. Now second input is done. Now the period, first one. Inspect this element also. So this is the one. Tenure. Copy this XPath. Driver dot find element by dot XPath. Specify the XPath dot send keys again. Send keys. And here we have to pass the first one, period one. And now there is a drop down here. Right, so drop down is there. So let's inspect this, and this is the XPath of the drop down. Capture this, and here we have to use select class, right? Because this drop down is having select tag, right? So we have to use it. So first get that element, driver dot find element by dot xpath, and this is the drop down element. So we need to pass this drop down element into the select class, right? Into the select class. So now I'm directly doing it. Inside the select class, we have to pass this element. Inside the select class, we have to pass this element. Now this will return the drop down element. I'll name it as a period DRP. Okay, period DRP. Now from this drop down, we have to select the value. And which value we need to select? Again, this is also, we have captured from Excel sheet, right? Which value we have to select? We have already captured from Excel sheet. So that is a value we have to capture. We have to select. So which is there in the frequency variable. Frequency or period 2? I think it is a period 2, right? So period 1 is already passed in the first box. Now we need to use this one. Period 2, we have to select. So how to select? Take this period drop down, dot select by visible text, and then pass this value, period 2. Now whatever value we capture from Excel sheet, the same value we are selecting from the drop down. Okay. Now, so this period drop down is done. Now what is the next one? Frequency drop down. So let us try to inspect this element, frequency drop down. Let me open another tab. Okay, so now let us try to inspect the frequency drop down. Okay, now if I just look at here, this is the XPath of the drop down. Again, one more select class we need to use. So first find dot element, driver dot find element by dot XPath. Okay, so this is the drop down. So which we need to pass in the select class. Like say select of that element. And now this will get the frequency drop down. So I will name it as frequency DRP. So frequency DRP. Now from this frequency drop down, we have to choose one option. But again, this option also comes from Excel sheet. So that is available in the frequency in this variable. So that is a value we have to select. Now take this frequency drop down, dot select by visible text. Now pass this frequency value. See this, guys, we are doing everything inside the for loop only. Okay, so we should not come out from the for loop. This everything should do through for loop, because still we are in the first row. We have get the row data, first row data. We are just passing the same data to the applications. Here we are passing the data to the application. So here we got the data from Excel and we are passing the same data to the application. So once you pass this data, then what we need to do? You have to click on the calculate button. So select this calculate, and is giving a larger XPath. So what I can do is I can just capture like this, right click. Okay, so I can simply right click, copy, sorry, inspect, right click, copy, XPath. So I'm just capturing the calculate button, driver dot find element by dot XPath, specify the XPath. Okay, so this is the XPath which we capture from the calculate button. And on this element, we have to perform the click action, right? Click action. So this is a calculate button. This is a calculate button. So once you press on this calculate button, then what happens? So what happens? Once you click on the calculate button, then which will give you the result here. So as soon as you calculate here, which will give you result. So that also we need to capture so that we will compare with our expected maturity value. So let me just write something here. So the selector hub is not giving properly. So I'm just opening multiple tabs. Okay. So let me pass some value here. Rate of interest is 5, period is 6, and years simple interest. Yeah. Now once you get the value, we need to capture this. And one more thing important. So this value is dynamically changed. Every time you will not see the same value here, right? But how we can write a proper XPath for this? So we need to properly capture the XPath for this. So we need to inspect this element first of all. Okay. And go to selector hub. If I just look at the selector hub, it is giving this one. XPath, relative XPath, it is giving like this. But suppose tomorrow if this values got changed, this XPath will not work. Because this value is dynamic. Based on the values we provided, this value is keep on changing. Right. So what we need to do now, we need to write our own XPath. So let us see how we can write the own. This is a strong, right? So this is a part of the span tag. Let us get the XPath for span tag first. So we reach it till here. Inside this, there is a strong tag is there. Inside this, a value is there. So just say /strong. That's it. It is not matching still. Strong, spelling mistake. Now we can see it is pointing the value. And tomorrow, if this value is got changed also, no problem, because here the value will be changed, but tag name is same always, right? So this is a customized XPath. So with this XPath, we will able to capture this value. Now copy this. And how to capture that value? Driver.find element by .xpath, and then specify that XPath dot text. We have a keyword called text, right? So if you want to capture the text from a web element, we use text. So that will return the text. What is the text actually? Actual maturity value. Actual means what is actual maturity value, which is displayed on the application. That's called actual maturity value. So I'm storing this value in a variable. Now with this, we have done everything on the application side. So two things we have done so far. So this part is for reading the data from Excel. Reading data from Excel. So once you read entire data, the next step, passing the data into the application. And here we also capture the actual maturity value from the application after doing everything. And now the next step is the validation will start. Okay, validation will start. So what is that validation? Everything I'm combining here. So now the next one is a validation. This is also a part of the for loop. Everything is a part of the for loop. Now validation start. What is a validation we do? So we already captured the expected maturity value here, right? From the Excel sheet. And this expected maturity value and this actual maturity value should be same. Okay, should be same. And then I can say my test is passed. So now we need to write a validation here by using if condition. And that if condition is also part of the for loop. So I say if what I can do here is expected maturity value. And one more thing. Here expected maturity value in which format? In which format it is? Please respond. So once we capture the expected maturity value in this variable from the Excel sheet, in which format it will capture? It's a number format or string format. Which format it will capture? Guys, are you with me? So please respond in the chat window. So here what I'm doing, I'm reading all the data from the Excel sheet step by step, right? All the columns. So expected value also we captured from the Excel sheet into this variable. Now, what is the data type here? What type of data it is? Is a string or number or what else? Is a string or number? Please tell me. In the Excel sheet, we have this data. After reading the data or expected maturity value, right? So this is the data we have. After reading and storing the data in the variable, what is the type of the data? Number or string? It is a string. It is string. Why? Go to the read data implementation. So whenever you capture the value from the workbook and sheet and cell, this will always return the text to data. Okay. It will always return the text data. Remember guys. Okay. So if you have a two text type, so but here these are text data, string format. But what about this one? Actual maturity value. So what is the type? What is the type of this variable? This is also text. Why? Because we say text variable here, right? So from this element, what is text will return? Text will always return the string. Text to string both are same. So expected maturity value is in string format. Actual maturity value is also in string format. So both are string formats. Can we compare them? If you compare, will you get the right results? No. Why? Because actually they are numbers. So when you compare this or when you do validation, actually we do on the numbers, not on the strings, right? So if you do the validation only on the numbers, then you will get the accurate result. So now before comparing these two, we have to convert them into number. And basically maturity value will be there in the decimal format. Okay. So we have to convert both into float. Float is representing the decimal number, right? So now float of, what is the function we have to convert? String to float. Can we convert or not? We can convert. So take this expected maturity value first, convert into the float. After conversion, then compare it. Compare again float of actual maturity value. So before comparing, we are converting into float, both the values, and then comparison will happen. See, in the condition itself, we are doing multiple things, guys. So we are converting this first here and here, and after that comparison will happen. If both are equal, then what we need to do? Let me print a message. Let's say print test passed. Okay, test passed. If both are equal. And what else we can do? If the test is passed, what else you can do? I want to write the results back into the same row here in the result column. So if this combination is passed, then in the result column, I want to write pass. How to write it? So to write the data into the Excel sheet, what is the method we have written in the utility file? So in the utility file, we have a method called write data, right? That is a method we have to call. So Excel utils dot write data. And what are the parameters we have to pass? File name, comma, sheet name. Sheet name is sheet 1, comma, and row number, column number, and data. So row number is anyway R. R is representing the row number everywhere, referring R only. Still we are in the first row only. Okay. R, row number, comma, column number. In which column? So what is the column number of result? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? 8. So I say 8 column. And what is the data you want to write in that column? I'll say passed. This is the data I want to write. Okay, so this is the data we want to write, passed. So Excel use dot write data. So file name we have passed, sheet name, row number, column number, and data. So why it is giving errors? Unresolved reference passed. Why is it so? Data. Just a moment. Okay, yeah, sorry. So I forgot sheet 1 codes. Perfect. Okay, so this is passed. Done. Great, guys. Okay, so now this particular statement will update the particular column, result column. And also I want to apply the color on the same column. Same cell. I want to apply the green color because it is passed. So what I will do? From the same module, we can call fill green color. And again, we have to pass the same parameters. But this time we have to just pass only column number. So file, sheet name, row number, column number. That's it. So this will apply the green color. Done. If it is passed, then we do all these things. But if it is failed, then what we need to do? Else block. Sorry. So copy these statements. But here, test failed. It is just print in the console window. And here also we say failed, same column. And here, instead of fill green color, we say dot fill red color. Fill red color. Done. And we need to do one more thing here. What else we need to do? So till here, what we have done, we have read the data from Excel sheet, only one row, and we pass the same data to the application. We capture the maturity value, and then we have validated. If it is equal, then we are doing all these things. If it is not equal, then we are all doing this. So one round of execution is done. Now, before going to the second round of execution, because after completion of everything, the for loop will repeat multiple times, right? So this time R value becomes to 3 now. Now in the third row data will be taken and then the same data will be passed on the application again and the same thing will be repeated. So until unless all the rows are completed, the same thing will be repeated. But after completion of this validation, we have to do one more important thing. What is that? So we need to clear this value. So if I don't clear this value in the next round, what happens? The new values will be added like this. It will just append like this. It will not give you the right result. So before entering the new data, clear these fields. How to clear all the fields at once? Just click on the clear button. Okay, that is a last step we have to do now. So go back and clear element. So get the XPath for that element. Inspect, copy, XPath of the clear button. So we have to do this. And that is not part of either if or else part. Okay. The clicking on clear button should happen after completion of everything, after completion of if else block also. So here we have to write. So driver dot find element by dot XPath. This is XPath which is given. So it is a single quote. A dot click, not clear. Okay. So click, because the button itself is a clear button. The button name is clear, but we have to perform click action on that. So click method we have to use. So this particular command will perform the click action and then data will be cleared. And then again, it will go up, row value will be incremented by 1. So then again, same thing will be repeated. And after completion of that, it will go very faster. So what I'll do is I will also put some sleep time. Time dot sleep. You can say 2 seconds are enough. After completion of everything, then I will close my driver dot close. See this, guys. So this is a data driven test case. So this much code we need to write. Even I have taken small application, but sometimes in the real time, you will have so many fields. Sometimes you may have 10 to 15 fields. So if I don't have this UTD file, you can imagine how much complex it will be, right? If I don't have this UTD file, so our test case will become very complex, because if I don't use this, if I use Excel UTD file, this much code we have written. But if I don't use Excel utilities file, then how much code you can write? You can imagine, right? So that is the reason we just go with the UTD file. Then the two advantages. One is what? It will simplify our code and it will reduce the complexity of your code. The second one is reusability. The same method we can use in another data-driven test case. We have 10 data-driven test cases. In all 10 data-driven test cases, you can use these functions multiple times. Okay, so that's the main usage of using Excel UTD file. So now let us execute this test case and see whether it's working fine or not. So, but before executing, make sure your Excel file should be closed. Now this last column is currently empty. Now save it and execute. Run it. Okay, now you can just look at carefully. So which will repeat multiple times with multiple sets of data. So this is the file. Still not started. So some error is gone. So let me just read. So Excel utis.getRowCount is giving an error. So line number 16. Let's cross check. So what is the line number 16? Excel utis.getRowCount. Yeah. So whenever you call this function, we are not passing any parameters, right? In Excel utis getRowCount, it is expecting some parameter, file and sheet name, right? So we have not passed it. So that's the reason it is giving an error. So let us now pass it. File and also sheet name, sheet 1. Now save it and then execute one more time. Okay, now launched my application. So now we can just look at this. Now first round is done. Now it's the second round. Now third round, fourth round, fifth round. And once it is done, your application will be closed. Okay. Now we can just look at the 4 inputs are got failed, only 1 input got failed because this is our expected. Okay, this is our expected. So now go and see the Excel sheet. So cal data.xls. Now we can just look at this. Now exactly whatever we are expecting, results also we are expecting. So here we are expecting failed and result also got the failed, means our test is passed. So this is how we can perform. But most of the times we don't write any results back into the same Excel because we will maintain the reports in our test cases framework. So everything will go into the reports itself. So most of the times we use Excel sheet only for reading the data, not for writing anything on the Excel sheet. But still, if you want to write something, you can go with this. Okay. So this is how we can do data-driven testing by using Excel file or Excel sheet. And Excel files are more, most of the times we prefer because it's more convenient for us. Okay, we can prepare the test data in rows, in columns and cells, everything, and it is more comfortable when you compare with the rest of the files. Like notepads and everything we can use, but notepads we don't prefer most of the times. And sometimes we can also use database. So if we have some data in the database tables, and we can also read the data and we can use the data for automation testing. So that is also we can do sometimes. Okay. So this is all about data-driven testing using Excel file. And which module we have to use for it? What is the name of the module? You have to tell that. What is the module name? So in interview, people may ask how you will work with Excel sheet in Selenium Python. So you have to tell OpenPyExcel. OpenPyExcel. So that is a module we have to import. Because in our test case, we have not imported here. If I just look at here, in our test case, that module is not imported. Why? Because we are not directly calling those methods from that module. But in Excel utils, we have imported. Because here we are accessing all the method from OpenPyExcel. Right? That's the reason. But in the actual test case, we don't have that. We are not imported because we are not directly calling the methods. We are calling the functions only from Excel utils. And in Excel utils, it is talking to the OpenPyExcel module. So that's the reason here import is required, but in our test case, import is not required. Okay. So this is all about data-driven test. Now in the next session, tomorrow's session, I'll show you how we can perform the data-driven testing using database. So for that, again, we have to learn a lot of things. So first of all, we need to know some basic database concept, how to interact with the databases, how we can fetch the data, how we can insert the data in the table. So we will see different type of operations. And then we will discuss about data-driven testing using database. And database testing is also part of that. So we do 2 different aspects. One is database testing using Selenium. The other aspect is data-driven testing using Selenium with database, using database. Okay, 2 different aspects. So that we will see in the next session.